G'day, I'm Pete, the Aussie Bush Cop. In 2012 I retired from the New South Wales Police and moved to beautiful King Island, where I became a homesteader. And I'd like to share with you stories of crime and criminals from the New South Wales bush. G'day, lovely to be with you again. Really appreciate being able to share these stories with you. You're probably aware that police can come across some situations where they could act corruptly if they wanted to. And unfortunately and sadly, some police do act corruptly. And this is a story that I'm going to tell you where I could have acted corruptly. And I'm not innocent enough for the thought not to go through my head. This particular night was in Dubbo. And before Dubbo now, and for quite some time, has had closed circuit TV that records all the time. And it's very, very handy for police when we want to watch somebody or even to record an arrest, because we could actually control the cameras from our station. Anyway, this particular night, an enterprising crook used a shopping trolley and used it to push it through the window of a jeweller shop that was in the main street of Dubbo. I'm talking about Macquarie Street, Dubbo. Because as you imagine, shop windows, maybe even more particularly a jeweller's window, they're pretty heavy glass. And it must have been a pretty big effort to smash it. Anyway, we never caught the person that did it, but he used his shopping trolley and smashed the window of this jeweller shop in Macquarie Street. And then, of course, put his hand through and grabbed a whole lot of jewellery and ran off on foot. I'm not sure, must have been some sort of alarm that was triggered that got our response, and my partner and I went to it. And, initially we can sort of presume the thief is long gone, and we're looking for evidence. In particular, you're looking for blood. Well, there was no blood. So then we were just picking up jewellery that he dropped. And I remember picking up a ruby ring. And I remember thinking, there's no closed circuit TV, there's no one around, my partner's way over there, I could just put this in my pocket and take it home and give it to my wife. And I'm not innocent enough not to think that. But just as quickly I thought, well, that's just the wrong thing to do. It's not mine. And that's stealing. So I just handed it in. It was just become part of our evidence. The next story is about just a very garden variety arrest. And it happened earlish one morning, around about 5:30 in the morning, because we had a hotel in Dubbo that used to finish trading at 5 a.m. And around 5 a.m, and we finished at 6, generally there was a flotsam and jetsam of life, moving along the streets around that hotel, and trouble would happen, just drunken fools. And one morning we were going down, we'd only just started work. I was on day shift and I had a brand new probationary constable with me. And there was a half-baked brawl going on down at the McDonald's restaurant on Cobra Street. So we were going down there to deal with that. And as we were going down there, we saw a knot of fellows walking along, and one of them gave us the one-finger salute, which constitutes the offence of offensive conduct. And I said to my partner, this brand new probationary constable, have a good look at him, we'll come and talk to him in a minute. Because we then went down to McDonald's, whatever was happening down there had ended, no one wanted to make any complaints. And we were driving back to the police station, and we drove past this knot of, there was 3 of them, three men that were walking along. And we pulled up, and the one that gave us the one-finger salute told him to stand there, and the other 2, just because they're potential combatants, just told them, mate, get moving, go away, walk up the street. And now, for a simple offence of offensive conduct, we don't like to take people into custody unless we have to. And one of the reasons that we don't have to is if we know who it is. I know it sounds pretty simple. But if we don't know who it is, then they've got to come into custody. So I said to this bloke, I didn't know who he was. He was a well-dressed looking young man. And I said to him, what's your name? And he said, David Hasselhoff. Now, you might remember David Hasselhoff from, what was it, the show Baywatch. He was one of the stars in that show. So for that reason alone, he came into custody. We got him back to the station. The sergeant was there. The charge room was already quite busy with prisoners. It had been a busy morning after these drunken fools leaving the hotel. And the sergeant was not in a very good mood. And he said to him, what's your name, son? He goes, David Hasselhoff. And so we decided to had to fingerprint him and then find out who he was, and eventually told us his real name. And I just dealt with him as quickly as I could. But might have been, my surname is Gillett, Gillett, and so it's not a very common name. And maybe about 1, 2, 3 years later, one of my sons was going for a job where David Hasselhoff's father owned the business. And it was a business, I'm not going to say what business house it is, but my son was going for a job there. And of course, part of the information he wanted is, what is your name? And when my son would have told him his name, he might have thought, oh, hang on, I know a policeman with that name, because the father wasn't very happy with me either. Anyway, so my son didn't get the job. I wasn't surprised. But might have been months and months later, David Hasselhoff came into custody again. And for similar sort of reason, he'd just been a fool down the main street. And I think he was pushing somebody in a shopping trolley, again, drunk as skunks, and pushing someone in a shopping trolley along the main street and being rude and obnoxious to anyone and everyone that was passing by. So hopefully David Hasselhoff's, and I expect he's probably grown up and become a decent member of society. I did suggest to him that next time he comes into custody that maybe he might want to bring Pamela Anderson with him as well. Anyway, that didn't happen. The last story for you today, perhaps if we're talking about enterprising crooks, I can tell you the story about a fellow that I arrested and charged for stealing copper pipe out of houses. Now, in the bad part of town, there was houses that were systematically vandalised to the point where people would get on the roof, they would take tiles off the roof and just throw them onto the road just to see them smash. They would go inside the homes, kick the doors in. This is Department of Housing houses, so owned by the taxpayer. Go in the houses, smash the doors, completely smash the internal lining, and then set fire to them. When I mentioned student police officers before when I was one, but one time we had a student police officer with us doing their number of weeks, and so they would sit in the back seat of our truck, and I would invariably say to them, because they were from Dubbo, and I would say to them, have you ever been to the Gordon estate, which is where all this stuff used to happen? And they said, no, never been there, because why on earth would you? It was a horrible part of town, violent, dirty, full of broken houses. And so we would take them into there, and it was really interesting watching their faces, their eyes. They just took it all in. Because in some ways it was like driving into what I imagine would have been like driving into Soweto. Just a horrible, violent part of town. And it was in this one of these houses where, I'm not sure how it all happened a long time ago, but I arrested this fellow because he got a bit enterprising, and he thought, well, when all these young people are kicked in the walls, there's in the bathroom and the laundry and the kitchen, there's copper pipe. So he had a hacksaw. I remember he had a hacksaw, and he was just cutting the copper pipe because it was quite valuable and taking it to the local scrap metal merchant and selling it. So, I had to give him a few points for being enterprising and at least at some point trying to employ himself. But of course, it's stealing. So that's probably enough for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time.